Why do predators ignore sleeping humans? Every single night, billions of people close their eyes, muscles relax, breathing slows, the brain switches off from the world. And out there, somewhere in the dark, a lion is awake. A wolf is moving through the trees. A leopard is sitting perfectly still, watching, waiting. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. You, lying there completely helpless, are the easiest meal that predator will ever find. You can't run. You can't fight back. You don't even know the danger is there. So why don't they just eat you? Seriously, think about it for a second. A sleeping human is basically a delivered meal. No chase required, no energy wasted, no risk of getting kicked or gored. You're just lying there. And yet, throughout all of human history, wild predators almost never attack sleeping humans. Not never. We'll get to the exceptions. But the overwhelming pattern across every continent and every culture is that when a predator encounters a sleeping human, it walks away. Why? The answer isn't simple. It's not one thing. It's a layered story that goes back millions of years, through evolution, through fear, through the chemistry of smell, through the history of fire, and through some of the most terrifying nights in recorded human history. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people never think about. You are not the prey in this story. You never were. Let's start at the beginning, the very beginning. About 6 million years ago, the ancestors of humans split off from the ancestors of chimpanzees. And for millions of years after that, our early relatives were small, slow, and extremely vulnerable. They didn't have claws, they didn't have fangs, they couldn't run fast, they couldn't climb as well as monkeys. In terms of raw physical ability, early hominins were genuinely mediocre animals, and the world they lived in was not forgiving. The African savanna of 2 to 3 million years ago was packed with predators that make today's lions look gentle. There were giant hyenas the size of bears. There were saber-toothed cats with canine teeth longer than your forearm. There were massive crocodiles. There were enormous eagles that could snatch a child off the ground. Our ancestors were not at the top of that food chain. Not even close. In fact, paleontologists have found early hominin skulls with puncture marks that match the claws of giant eagles. We know from fossil evidence that leopards dragged early humans up into trees, the same way they carry impala today. We were prey, actively, regularly hunted prey. So the question is, how did the most physically unimpressive great ape on the African continent eventually become the animal that every other predator on Earth is afraid of? It didn't happen overnight. It happened through millions of years of the most powerful force in biology, evolution under pressure. Every time a predator killed one of our ancestors, the ones who survived were the ones who were smarter, more alert, more social, more cooperative. The ones who ran faster didn't survive, because we couldn't outrun anything. The ones who were more clever survived, and slowly, painfully, over millions of generations. Our ancestors went from being prey to being something no predator had ever encountered before. The first and most important factor is one that seems so obvious we almost miss it. Fire. Humans control fire. No other animal on Earth does this. And the impact of this one fact on the behavior of predators is absolutely enormous, bigger than most people realize. Here's the thing about fire in nature. In the wild, before humans, fire was purely random. Lightning strikes, volcanoes, dry grass catching in the heat. And when fire happened, animals ran, every single one of them. Because uncontrolled wildfire means death. It consumes everything. It spreads unpredictably. Every predator on Earth, lions, leopards, wolves, hyenas, they all have a deep ancient fear of fire built into them by millions of years of evolution. Because the animals that didn't fear fire didn't survive wildfires. And the animals that did fear fire passed that fear to their children. So by the time our ancestors learned to control fire, roughly 1.5 million years ago based on some evidence, more consistently around 400,000 years ago, they had accidentally discovered something extraordinary. They had found the one thing that every predator on Earth is hardwired to be afraid of. A campfire is not just warmth. A campfire is a signal. And the signal says, whatever made this fire, don't go near it. Think about what a campfire does to the environment around it. The smell of smoke drifts out for hundreds of meters. The crackling, unpredictable sound. The flickering light that makes shadows move in ways that look alive. For a lion approaching a sleeping camp at night, all of this is deeply unsettling. It's not just unfamiliar. It's the specific combination of sensory inputs that the animal's brain has been wired to associate with danger. And here's the crucial part. The fire doesn't need to be huge. Even the residual smell of old smoke. Even the faint smell of charcoal and ash. Even the smell of cooked food, which means fire was here recently. All of it communicates the same message. Something that controls fire sleeps here. Move on. Researchers who have studied predator behavior around human camps have found that predators dramatically change their movement patterns based on signs of human activity. Mountain lions in North America reroute entirely around areas where they can smell or hear humans. Wolves in Europe avoid entering areas that smell of human habitation. This avoidance response isn't learned by individual animals from bad experiences. It's something deeper than that. It's inherited caution, the behavioral inheritance of thousands of generations of predators that avoided humans and lived longer because of it. But fire is only part of the story. Because the truth is, even without fire, even in situations where there's no smoke and no campfire, predators still tend to avoid sleeping humans. Why? This is where a concept from modern ecology comes in, and it is one of the most fascinating ideas in the study of animal behavior. It's called the landscape of fear. Every animal that lives in a habitat, prey or predator, mentally maps that habitat in terms of risk, not just geography, not just where is the water hole or where are the trees, but emotionally. Every location in the territory gets assigned a level of threat. Near the place where lions drink at night, high risk, don't linger. Open grassland with good visibility in daylight, medium risk. Deep inside dense bush, different risks depending on what hunts in thick cover. Animals are continuously updating this mental map based on what they see, hear, and smell. And in habitats where humans are present, the area around humans becomes the highest risk zone on the map. Here's the study that will genuinely surprise you. Researchers set up speakers in protected areas of the African savanna, places like national parks, and played different sounds. The sounds of lions roaring, the sounds of hunting dogs, the sounds of guns firing, and the sounds of ordinary humans just talking, just having a casual conversation. The animals in the savanna showed stronger avoidance responses to the sound of human voices than to lions. Let that sink in. Zebras, elephants, Cape buffalo, animals that lions actively hunt and kill, were more afraid of the sound of people talking than of the sound of lions roaring. This is not because a human voice is physically more frightening than a lion's roar. It's because the evolutionary history of interactions between large mammals and humans across tens of thousands of years has produced a specific, powerful, inherited response. Humans mean danger in a way that lions don't. A lion is dangerous, yes, but a lion hunts with its body. It approaches, it charges, it kills. The prey has a chance. Run fast enough, you survive. Humans hunt with weapons. Weapons that kill from distances that make no sense to an animal's instinct. A human standing 200 meters away looks completely harmless, and then an animal dies. Over thousands of years, the animals that treated humans as unpredictable, potentially lethal threats, regardless of what those humans were doing, survived longer and had more offspring. The animals that were relaxed around humans got hunted. So the population of wild animals alive today is the population descended from the animals that were most afraid of us. This is the landscape of fear applied to humans. We are, ecologically speaking, the apex super predator of the entire planet, not because of our physical ability, but because of our historical impact on every other species. And when a predator encounters a sleeping human, all of this inherited caution activates. The human isn't doing anything threatening, isn't holding a weapon, isn't moving. But the predator's brain isn't processing harmless sleeping animal, it's processing human, unknown risk. Proceed with extreme caution. And in most cases, extreme caution means find something else to eat. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. You don't just look dangerous, you smell dangerous. Research in evolutionary biology and neuroscience has found that mammals have specific olfactory responses, smell responses, to certain chemical signals that indicate the presence of predators or threats. These responses aren't learned, they're innate. They're built into the nervous system. And humans produce a chemical profile that is unlike any other animal in the wild. Think about everything you carry with you. The smell of cooked food. Cooking requires fire, and fire means danger. Any animal with a functioning nose can detect traces of cooking, meat, plants, smoke, and that scent profile doesn't occur naturally without fire. The smell of metal, tools, even just a metal watch buckle or a cooking pot. No natural animal produces metallic scents. To a predator, this is deeply unfamiliar and instinctively unsettling. The smell of synthetic materials. Clothes, tent fabric, nylon, polyester, Gore-Tex, none of these smells exist in nature. To a wolf or a leopard's nose, which is thousands of times more sensitive than yours, a sleeping human in a tent smells like nothing that has ever existed in the natural world before humans. And this unfamiliarity triggers a specific response in most predators: caution. Predators, despite their reputation, are not reckless. A lion that injures itself on a meal it didn't fully understand cannot hunt. An injured predator in the wild often dies, so evolution has shaped predators to be very careful about unfamiliar things. A sleeping human smells completely alien. The combination of cooked food, synthetic materials, metal soap, and the distinct chemistry of human sweat creates a scent profile that says to every instinct in a predator's body, "This is unknown. This is potentially dangerous. Do not engage without more information," and more information usually means watching from a distance, circling, assessing. And by the time a predator has finished assessing, it usually decides that the risk isn't worth it. There's also a group component to this. In the wild, humans don't sleep alone. Even in the most isolated camping scenarios, there are usually multiple people. And humans sleeping in a group are a completely different threat calculation than a single sleeping antelope. Wake one person, and you might wake all of them. And the response of a panicked group of humans, even unarmed, is loud, unpredictable, and potentially very dangerous for an animal that relies on stealth to hunt. The risk-to-reward ratio just doesn't make sense. Why attempt a complicated, high-risk attack on a creature that might wake up and fight back in unpredictable ways, when you can hunt a zebra or an impala instead? Now we need to talk about the times when predators have attacked sleeping humans. Because it has happened, and understanding when and why it happens actually makes the main story more powerful, not less. The most famous case in history, and one of the most terrifying events ever documented, is the story of the Tsavo man-eaters. It's 1898. British colonial forces are building a railway bridge over the Tsavo River in what is now Kenya. Thousands of workers, mostly Indian laborers brought over by the British, are camped in a series of tents along the construction route. The work is hard, the heat is brutal, the terrain is unforgiving. And then, one night, something reaches into the camp and drags a man out of his tent. At first, people thought it was a one-time thing. Animals occasionally wander near human settlements. But then it happened again, and again, and again. 2 lions, later named the Ghost and the Darkness, had begun systematically hunting the railway workers at night. Over the next 9 months, these 2 lions terrorized the camp in ways that are almost incomprehensible. They learned the layout of the camp. They learned which tents were less guarded. They figured out which side the wind came from and approached from downwind. They operated as a coordinated pair, one creating a distraction while the other went for the victim. Workers built bomas, thorn fences around the camp. The lions jumped them. They built fires everywhere. The lions went around them. They tried to sleep on elevated platforms. The lions found ways around those too. The psychological impact was catastrophic. Workers refused to sleep. Some fled entirely. Construction on the railway halted. The British colonial government sent in armed reinforcements, and still the lions came. By the time Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson, the engineer overseeing the project, finally shot and killed both lions in December 1898, they had killed somewhere between 28 and 135 people. The estimates vary wildly, and the debate about the actual number continues to this day. But here's the critical question. Why did these 2 lions do something that almost no other lions in history have done? Modern science has actually given us some answers. First, and this is the most important factor, one of the 2 lions had severe dental damage, a tooth abscess, a broken tooth. For a lion that normally hunts large, powerful animals like zebra or buffalo, an injury like that is devastating. Hunting big prey requires biting hard, and biting hard with a damaged tooth is agonizing. Humans, by comparison, are small and physically weak. We're easier to bring down. We're easier to chew. For a lion in severe dental pain, the calculus changed. Second, the normal prey animals in the Tsavo region had been nearly wiped out. A disease called rinderpest swept through Africa in the 1890s and devastated cattle and buffalo populations. The lion's usual food was gone. Third, and this is the disturbing historical detail, the Tsavo River crossing was a known stop on the East African slave trade routes for centuries. Arab and Swahili slave caravans regularly passed through, and enslaved people who died on the journey, which was many, were left where they fell. It's possible that the lions in that region had generations of history scavenging human bodies at that river crossing. They may have lost the fear of human flesh that other lions maintained. And fourth, the railway camp workers slept without the protective factors we talked about earlier. Not enough fires, flimsy tents, often alone or in pairs, far from any established settlement. The system that normally protects sleeping humans, fire, group size, unfamiliar smell, inherited fear, had broken down in almost every way for those workers. This is the exception that proves the rule. The reason the Tsavo story is famous is precisely because it was so unusual, so terrifying, so contrary to the normal behavior of lions around humans. Normal lions don't do this. These two specific lions, in these specific circumstances, with these specific injury and history factors, they did. There is one more layer to this story that I want you to really sit with, because we've been talking about what protects sleeping humans from predators. But the deeper question is, how did humans go from being regularly hunted prey, like those early hominins with eagle talon marks in their skulls, to being the animal that the largest predators on Earth instinctively avoid? How did we do that? The answer is something that Princeton University researchers recently described in a book about human sleep and evolution. They called it the social shell. Think of it like a snail's shell, but instead of calcium, it's made of people. Our ancestors, at some point hundreds of thousands of years ago, stopped sleeping alone and started sleeping together. In groups, around fires, with someone always partially awake, with shelters that concentrated multiple adults in one defensive location. And in doing so, they solved a problem that every other ground-sleeping animal on Earth still has. Because here's the thing about sleeping in a group around a fire. You don't all sleep at the same time. Someone is always lighter in their sleep. Someone hears the rustle and wakes up. Someone is tending the fire. The entire group doesn't need to be awake for the group to be defended. This social sleeping strategy, which researchers estimate may have begun as early as 1.5 million years ago, changed everything. It made sleep safer than it had ever been for any primate. And safer sleep meant deeper sleep. And deeper sleep meant more REM sleep. And more REM sleep is directly linked to better memory, better problem solving, better creativity. So here is a mind-bending connection that most people never make. The intelligence that eventually allowed humans to dominate the planet, the creativity, the problem-solving, the ability to make tools and develop language may have been made possible in part by sleeping in groups around fires, because those groups made sleep safe enough to be deep, and deep sleeps made our brains better, and better brains made us more dangerous. And more dangerous humans meant more predators learned to avoid us, and predators avoiding us made sleep even safer. It was a feedback loop, a spiral of cognitive evolution, driven in part by the simple decision to not sleep alone in the dark. That is an extraordinary thought. So let's bring this all back to where we started. You are lying there, eyes closed, completely helpless. Out there in the dark, something is watching, and it turns out that something is afraid, not because you're physically impressive, not because you're fast or strong or have sharp teeth, but because of everything your species has done over the past 2 million years, because of the fire your ancestors learned to control, because of the groups they learned to sleep in, because of the weapons they learned to make, because of the thousands of generations of predators that tried to hunt humans and paid the price, and whose surviving descendants inherited the lesson. Scientists have found that mammals in the African savanna flee more intensely from the sound of a human conversation than from a lion's roar. Even lions, even the most powerful land predators alive, show measurable avoidance behavior around areas where humans are present. We are the apex of the apex, the top of the landscape of fear for virtually every land mammal on the planet. And we achieved that not with claws or speed or size. We achieved it with fire, with community, with the decision, made somewhere deep in our ancestral past, to sleep together and protect each other through the night. So the next time you're lying in the dark, somewhere wild, somewhere far from civilization, and you hear a sound outside, remember this. Whatever made that sound is probably more afraid of you than you are of it. Not because you're dangerous right now, lying there in your sleeping bag, but because everything your species has been for 2 million years is written into that animal's deepest instincts. You are the thing that controls fire. You are the thing that hunts with weapons that kill from impossible distances. You are the thing that changed the behavior of every predator on Earth. Sleep well. If this kind of deep dive into human history and evolution is what you're into, you are in exactly the right place. Every video on this channel goes this far or further. Subscribe and hit the bell, because next time, we're going to ask another question that sounds simple but absolutely isn't. See you there.